Hi everybody, thank you for coming to today's video. We are going to be covering LinkedIn 101. My name is Christina Nguyen. I am the Senior Career Service Advisor at the University of Dallas for the Office of Personal Career Development. Here's my contact information in case you have any questions about today's presentation and need a little bit more assistance. In today's presentation, we are going to be talking about why you should be using LinkedIn, LinkedIn profile basics, and LinkedIn tips for success. So why do we use LinkedIn? First, I want to say what LinkedIn is. LinkedIn is a professional networking website that you are able to make connections with different people, share content, and learn a little bit more about your industry or field of interest. So why we use LinkedIn, though, is that over 690 million members are on the platform. Over 30 million companies are represented with over 20 million active job postings, 3 million job postings that are updated every single month. And so it's a really good way in order to make connections and make sure to foster those relationships in order to continue networking. But the big reason of why we recommend using it is that 95% of recruiters use LinkedIn to both find or vet job candidates. So if 95% of recruiters are using it to search for you, this is a chance for you to create your own narrative of how you want to be displayed on LinkedIn. Next, we're going to be covering LinkedIn basics. I'm going to be going over the portfolio checklist that LinkedIn actually recommends in creating all the different sections in your LinkedIn profile. We're going to go through those, and then we're also going to go into tips for success. So first of all, this is kind of a snapshot of what a LinkedIn profile looks like at first glance. And the first thing that you want to do is make sure that you have a headshot. So choose a professional headshot that really shows your face, and we really recommend smiling. It's a really good way to show your features and really show what kind of engagement that you already have in a photo really quickly. Next is your headline. You want to just make sure to either highlight your LinkedIn headline with either your current position or your career interest. And then finally, you want to work on your summary. It's also called an about on your LinkedIn profile. You want it to write a brief paragraph about your career interests, highlights, or accomplishments. This is really a chance for you to tell a viewer a little bit more about yourself. And then with this is your basic profile to begin with at a first glance. I do want to mention about your name. If you go by a middle name or a name that's not associated with your first name, I highly recommend using your first name and then putting the name that you go by or prefer in quotations. This is the easiest way, so when you're applying on applications or things like that, you might have to use your first name for legal purposes, but then they know what name you go by. So that makes the connection a little bit easier for you, and it's an easier way to find you as well on LinkedIn. Next, we just want to talk about the experience section. So you're going to list all the experience that you've ever had before. This could be part-time opportunities, this could be paid or unpaid internships, this could be full-time work that you've done, contract, temporary work, freelance, etc. This is a chance for you to really go beyond your resume and get a chance to expand and brag about your accomplishments that you had. Be sure to use action verbs and be as results-oriented as possible. If you're just starting out and you don't know where to start, it's okay to go ahead and copy maybe some of your bullet points in your resume, but as you get some more time, make sure to build out those sections to really focus on those accomplishments. Next is the education and volunteer experience section. So with your education, you want to make sure that you are adding your university. So if you are a student at the University of Dallas, then make sure to add that. Say what degree you're getting. Is it a bachelor's degree? Is it a master's? What your major is? Other things that you can add are your GPA, organizations that you're involved in, like honor societies, any concentrations that you're getting. You can also add maybe some coursework if it's relevant to your industry or field that you want to go into. For your GPA, you can use anything that's probably a 3.0 and up is recommended. If it's a 3.5 and up, for sure put it. Sometimes the GPA is a baseline requirement for internships, so it's a good idea to put it on your LinkedIn. It's a good way to just make sure that you get the first maybe or yes as you go through applications. Next is your volunteer experience. Any volunteer activities that you've ever done, either with student organizations, employers offsite, or maybe it was even one service project you did one time, go ahead and add it. This is a good way to show kind of what you did outside in the community. It makes you a little bit more of a well-rounded candidate. Other LinkedIn sections you might have are your skills section, recommendations, or accomplishments. In your skills section, you want to make sure to use these and include them. So having people endorse you for each skill set that you've done before, if they've worked with you before, or if they're a professor or an advisor that really knows your work is really recommended. They can also endorse you for things and at different levels of what your expertise is in those areas. It's always good if you list a skill to make sure that it's backed up with evidence throughout your experience, your work experience or your volunteer experience sections. Recommendations are also another great section because if you are a great employee and you've been trying to find ways to have your supervisor's voice be heard, this is a great place to have it. Not every application will ask for a letter of recommendation, but having a recommendation that is posted on your LinkedIn for anyone to see publicly is a great way to share a little bit about what you did and why you were such a great worker. Your supervisor will be able to write one for you, and if they're not on LinkedIn, you can actually email them and ask them to be posted on there. Next is accomplishments. So add any type of awards, projects, or organizations here. So if you were a part of like an honor society or anything else like that, it's a great place to get added. If you have any awards like Employee of the Month or Student of the Year, those are great places to put those as well. And then any projects you've done before too. So if you've done client projects before for people or maybe some freelance projects, even projects that you did for school are all great opportunities for you to put them here if they are relevant both to your industry field and show a little bit more expertise that you have in the areas you want to go into. Next, we're going to go over some tips for success on LinkedIn. These are just some things that I really recommend and our office recommends for you to do in order to really use LinkedIn to the best of your ability and get the most out of it that you can. First is to really optimize your headline. So you can obviously just state what current position you're doing, an internship, or that you're a student here at UD. That's great. What I would implore you to do is even expand on that. Headline key terminologies are used during LinkedIn searches, so you want to make sure that if someone was looking at your profile, they know exactly what you're looking for. So a couple examples I have here are marketing student seeking a social media internship, English student aspiring to be a leader in publishing, and seeking summer internship for cybersecurity with a vertical line of grad student at UD. These are all great ways for you to see in your headline exactly what you're looking for, exactly what you're seeking, and if anybody looked at it, they would know exactly what you need from them. And you can always add that you're a student or that you are whatever your current position is after those kind of keywords and phrases, but it's a good way for you to get started. Next is to personalize your LinkedIn URL. What I mean by that is that your default is linkedin.com/your name hyphen your last name hyphen 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, like a whole bunch of numbers. Go ahead and shorten that to your name. And if you have a really common name like me, I actually use my first name, middle name, and last name so that employers can find me and it's my own direct customized URL. You just want to make sure that whatever URL that you pick goes directly to you and is associated with your name. So you might use a first name, an initial, last name, things like that. Next, in your summary section, just make sure to tell a story. Tell a little bit about yourself, what your career interests are, and, maybe the skill set that you bring or accomplishments that you did. Find a way to articulately state, maybe in one paragraph, about yourself and kind of what you bring to the table. This is a really great way to have a quick glance for an employer or maybe even an alum who's looking at your LinkedIn profile to learn a little bit more about you. Next is to explain your experience with measurable outcomes. We mentioned this a little bit earlier by using action verbs and being results oriented, but you want to make sure to give quantitative data when you can. So any percentages that you can give, numbers that you can give is really good because it tells a little bit more about the experience and a little bit more about the story that you did there at your job or at your internship or your volunteer experience. Next is work on your skills and endorsements. And by that, I mean making sure that you list the skills because I'm telling you, a lot of people will look at skills first to see if you have the basics of what they're looking for, the bottom line criteria. And so you can actually take a little bit of a skill quiz. If you don't have anyone to endorse you for it, they can show you your expertise based on the information and things like that. Next is to really build out your network. My first aim is to always say that you want to go to work towards the 500 plus connections that comes up on your profile if you have over 500. It's a good way to expand your network too, because the more connections that you have, the more that you can expand out to other places and other people. So the more people that you can connect with, you get their connections, and you can build out your network that way in order to really have a robust people in order to contact them, see what their content is, see what they're posting, and learning a little bit more about their organizations as well as their expertise. Next is to follow companies and industries that really interest you. So these can be influencers such as CEOs or maybe writers that you really admire. Companies that you want to follow are either organizations you want to work for, people who you believe in their culture, or maybe it's companies that you shop at or companies that you use that you admire and you keep coming back to. Those are companies and industries and really influencers that you want to follow. And the reason that you want to follow them goes into our next tip, which is to share posts to your newsfeed and engage with users. So if you are following these influencers and these companies, as they post things that you're interested in, you might like that post. You might share that post onto your own newsfeed. And as you share things, other people in your connections see that content as well. And the more that you engage with the platform by engaging with users, sharing posts in your newsfeed, creating your own articles, creating your own posts, starting discussion threads and trends and things like that, that just gives you more exposure to your own profile and your own brand. And that's a really good way to interact with people, especially if you don't ever have done it before. Maybe you don't have enough connections. Like, look at websites or companies that are sharing content and starting discussions and starting that conversation, and maybe just contribute to it. Those are great ways of how people have used LinkedIn in order to boost their own profile, in order to get more connections and learn and really, learn and take in feedback from other people in order to grow. And then finally is to turn on your career interest. This is important because based on this, you might be able to be viewable by recruiters. Looking at job titles and job interests and things like that will help you too, as LinkedIn can push more content that you're really interested into you in the job section. And with that, you'll be able to really look at things that are really interested to you in areas that you want without having to search too hard for it. And you also come up in searches based on the interest that you have, and which is really important, because the more that you use LinkedIn, the more that you'll have more visibility and the more that other people will be able to find you and connect with you as you look for opportunities. So with that, that's really all I have for today's workshop. If you have any questions for anybody in our office or for me, you can make an appointment with your career advisor at udallas.joinhandshake.com. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to email us at career@udallas.edu. Thank you so much. And then if you have any other concerns, or if you want to look at any of our additional content for our workshops, just make sure to look at our additional videos right over here.